Hello, and welcome to Look Down There, the show where we talk about all the things we don't talk about. I'm your host, Michelle Lamore. Now, I am re recording this intro because, as it turns out, there was just too much pussy power in the virtual room with my two guests, and I had some technical difficulties. So, we're going to try this again. My guests today are the authors of the new book, Pussypedia. Yes, you heard that correctly. Zoe Mendelson is a writer, researcher, content strategist, and lover of pussies. Her work has been featured in the Washington Post, LA Times, and Wired. Her co-founder and illustrator is Maria Conejo. Maria is a graduate from the Fine Arts School of Mexico, and her medium is drawing, where she works to represent the female body in all its forms. Her work has been featured in Art Basel and the Dechronic Studio in New York City. These masterminds have come together to bring you a gender and ability inclusive book about all things pussy. So let's get to it. Welcome, Zoe and Maria. Yes. So this book, hot pink pussy Bible, right? I am just coming into a phase where I like the color pink.
I read about that on your
What's
Instagram.
that about?
Well, I think it's prescribed to us, which is a reason not to like something. Like I still haven't read Harry Potter. So I think that it could be something like that, where it's like you want to rebel against, the like pink is for girls. You should like pink be girly kind of thing that it represents, like heteronormativity. But it's my favorite color. Like I just can't get away from loving it. It's a beautiful color and it's the color of pussies.
Yeah. So you've always loved pink. Like you didn't have a phase where you hated it like I did. No. What about you, Maria?
Well, I don't hate pink, but I think that most of my things and clothes are black. But like all my little stuff that I appreciate are pink. So I try to have pink in my everyday life.
Yeah. No, this is a whole new world for me. I've always been like all black, like Maria, and just like, oh, I'm tough. And now I'm like, ooh, maybe I'm going to dye my hair pink. That'll be fun. Like what's happening? All right. Well, I want to first open with talking about the word pussy because it can be really divisive. And I really love right in the beginning, you talk about like, what is this definition of this word? Like, let's reclaim this and bring power to it rather than shame. So I want to start just by reading to you your own words. Okay. So we propose a new gender and organ inclusive use of the word that means some combination of vagina, vulva, clitoris, uterus, urethra, bladder, rectum, anus, and who knows, maybe some testes. The word vagina comes from the Latin word for sword holder. We are not down with the idea that vaginas exist as objects of service to penises. Also, vagina only refers to the canal. If we call the whole thing a vagina, we ignore a bunch of other important parts, including everything you see on the outside and the clitoris, which is made of the same tissues as a penis, about the same size as one, and responsible for orgasms. We wish we didn't have to refer back to penises to make this point about how important the clitoris is. Yeah, for real. If we call it a vulva, we ignore the vagina and everything else inside. Also, there wasn't an available word that could include all these parts plus testes, which some intersex people with pussies have. Like, what if we had words for foot, shin, calf, knee, and thigh, but no word for leg? We picked pussy because it had no prior specific definition, because you smile when you say it. It's used around the world, and because it's historically offensive, which is fun. We are taking pussy back because we like it, and we hope you like it too. Yes. So have you always had a good relationship with the word pussy?
No, I think it was a shocking word for me at the beginning when we started using it. For sure, it was still like a dirty word. Yeah, a charged word.
Yeah. What about you, Maria?
Well, I wasn't scared of it because I'd heard it, I don't know, in movies that aren't from Mexico. So it was just like a word that I was used to listen in a very specific way. So taking it back feels powerful.
Yeah, agreed. I also had to come to that word pussy and like really embrace that, just like embracing pink.
Yeah,
Embrace the
exactly.
pink. That's the moral of the story in all its forms.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, warmth. It is very warm. And like I love the color that Maria chose for the book cover because it's very warm.
Yeah, it's not, I
Mhm.
mean, it's not like a glaring hot pink, but it's got these really great bold letters, Pussypedia, and it's on the side. So when you have it on your bookshelf, you can't be like, well, you can't really hide that.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, some people have complaints that there's no cover to take off so they can't read it on the train. I'm like, of course you can read it on the train. Why couldn't you read it on the train?
Yeah. Oh my gosh. So I love this book because there's no shame, right? And Maria, your illustrations are really fun and playful and approachable and really like takes the scary out of the pussy. And I'm so appreciative of what you both have done. You started Pussypedia how long ago?
Back in 2016,
Okay.
by the end of that year, we were thinking about it. And then we start brainstorming names for the project. And then we look for sponsors so we could make the project that we were thinking. And there wasn't anyone that wanted to support us because these things weren't important, for most
I'll be
people.
like, I love it, but like we can't.
Right, right. Yeah. As a brand, we can't support this. Yeah.
So we ended up making a crowdfunding in 2017 that was very successful. We were very scared because we were asking for a lot of money, as we thought, but it wasn't. When a lot of people supported us, and we ended up having 3 times what we asked. And we had all the resources to come up with this website, this platform of sex education, that it's online, that is free, bilingual, and inclusive, and very beautiful.
Yeah, I love the attention to inclusivity because you don't see that very often. I appreciate that so much is being done right now to get good information and spread the word of pussy, but it does tend to just be really isolated and just talking about women only, but there's so much more here. Yeah. What led you to create Pussypedia?
I was arguing one night with my ex-boyfriend about whether or not all women can squirt because he was obsessed with making me squirt and I couldn't do it. And I was just like, thought it was so pompous that he was like, every woman can squirt. And I was like, that's bullshit. So I just started Googling it as one does. And obviously came up with a lot of really dumb crap, like about just like dumb videos for like men about like how to make women squirt and like really just bad quality information, a bunch of stuff that said different things. So I got into some medical journal articles because I'm a journalist. So I was like, this isn't good information. So I need to go to the source. And I started reading these journal articles and I was like, what? Like I couldn't understand anything. I didn't understand where my bladder was in relation to my vagina. I had to look up like everything, and I just ended up spending the whole night reading about like vaginas and pussies, learning about my body and squirting and the whole pleasure anatomy of the pussy, and was like, whoa, like there's so many people that would want to know all of this stuff. Holy crap. Like called Maria and I was like, Maria, we have to do this pussy project because oh my God. And yeah, that's how it started.
Were you always really confident and secure in your own body?
No. No. I had like, I was a fat little kid and I just like never grew out of like the stinging shame of being a fat kid, fat little girl. I remember like buying boys size 16 husky jeans. Husky. That was like terrible.
I know
What a
husky.
terrible
Yeah.
thing to call that. Yeah. And no, I was very weird about my body. I had so much shame about so much of my like parts of my pussy and sexual function and horniness. And no, I was riddled with shame for very many years.
How did you bring yourself out of that shame circle?
Well, I think part of it is like just the simple fact of like when you talk about something ad nauseum, it like loses its uh,
It's
charge.
power.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So like, okay, like we talked about, I studied discharge for like 2 months. You know, I like read everything about like the chemical composition of discharge and like what it's made of and why what it's doing in your body and like talked about it so much with like the fact checker and the person who wrote the original article for the website and then like did this a new version for the book and like when you go through things like picking them apart into little details, it's like if you say a word enough times the word will start to sound really weird to you, like, so there's that, but then there's also just like connecting with people over this stuff just really heals shame, talking about it out loud and connecting with other people and being like, yeah, that's dumb. And then also like learning about the origins of all of our shame and like the political purpose it serves and being like, this is bullshit. I'm not going to let this affect me. Like the anger sort of can replace it. And the will to be healthy and happy and defy all of the patriarchy's efforts to hold you down.
Yes, baby. Yeah, anger is a powerful tool in the act of creation, I find. It's my
Yeah.
fuel, it's my fire, it's my passion. And I know I just read to you from your book, but I want to read this one part because you're just talking about discharge. And I think this really like encapsulates the tone of the book because it is hilarious and also rage inducing.
Okay.
So like, like I'm laughing, but also really pissed off while I'm reading your book. But you have this section on discharge. It goes like this. So you've probably tried to look up information about your discharge, and you've read something like this. If your discharge is like eggshell color, but with a tint of egg white, you're fine. If it's more like a crew, bone, off whitish, or whipped egg whites, you might die. If it's meringue, then that's totally normal. Cottage cheese is maybe okay, but if it's more like low fat than full fat, it might be a problem. If it's like cream cheese, go to the ER right now. Yeah, pretty much. Pretty much.
Yeah. That's like the beginning of the research. I was trying to write something like that, being like, well, if it looks like, and then I was like, no, this is ridiculous. This is so stressful to read. Like,
Yeah.
especially, yeah, that's just like, no, I'm going to acknowledge how stressful this is because it's like, what? Like, I don't know if this is meringue or cream cheese. So I'm fucked,
Right. Yeah. Yeah. I feel like I've just come around recently, like within the past few years of like embracing the discharge because I've always felt like, oh God, like I'm dirty or like, oh, I did good today because I didn't have that much discharge or like, what's up
Yeah,
with this discharge? Like what's going on
exactly.
today?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's so normal. It's interesting. It's actually the most read article on the website and has been since we launched. And it's like pretty far down the homepage scrolling. So I think it's just something that like causes a lot of people anxiety because the way it changes, it changes a lot. And like the cycle that it changes in is long enough that it's kind of hard to notice that it's repetitive and it can also change based on other things that are going on. So it's like anxiety inducing because you're like, why, what? And it's also something that nobody talks about. So I think it also is like shameful because of that.
Yeah. Yeah. Like again, like recently within the last few years, like learning about the right when you're ovulating and it's like clear and I'm like, what's happening here? Like, I
Mhm.
like it, but what's going on? I don't understand.
Yeah,
And now I'm like, oh, this is a
totally.
good time for me. Uh, Maria, tell me about your character, the body. I found it really interesting.
Well, my artwork since always has been about the body. Como que I have this deep interest in it because when I was a child, I was very amazed of my body. Like I look at it with wonder, like, oh my God, all the things that my body can do. And then when I grew up, I had this Catholic education, and I was told several times that there was something wrong with my body or that I shouldn't expose it because it provokes, I don't know if that's the word, men, and that I should cover it and that I should feel shame about it. And then, I mean, it wasn't something that I listened to, like really listened to it. So I didn't feel that my body was like that, but it was something very defining on my relationship with it. And then I started realizing that I had received messages about my body from everywhere, from my family, from advertising on TV, or I don't know, like you need to look like this ideal that we are showing, and if you don't look like that, then there's something wrong. You are not worth it. So I've been trying to heal, yeah, through my work, like trying to understand my relationship with my body and identify all the things from outside that affected me through my whole life. And in part of this process was beginning drawing my own body, or drawing this female character that at some point loses her head and then it remains like a headless body. And when I saw that body, I just began connecting every point or every experience I had in my life regarding it. So yeah, I created this character that is just a body and that allows me to express emotions or to communicate things with the body. No, the only thing that people told me that was wrong to have. So now I use it as my main symbol language. And all my efforts that I do, not only in my art, but as an illustrator, are to destigmatize the body. You know, that's the work that I'm trying to do. Like my personal work is this character without a head, but my work as an illustrator is more about talking about body things, body topics, and try to show them in a more joyful and direct and friendly way.
That's beautiful. I love that. Is that how you both came together? And yes. Okay.
Yeah, I called Maria because of what her work was.
Oh, wow. So you were a fan first.
But we were friends,
Oh,
and I
okay.
was a fan. I told her I was the president of her fan club, but not in a Selena kind of way.
Yeah, I think it's so interesting how much time we spend hating or lamenting our body and all that energy that goes into that could be going into other things. And not to say that we shouldn't take care of it and, do as much as we can to keep it healthy, but it's not all that we are. And it it facilitates our interaction with the world and with each other, and that's the beauty of it. It's this receptor of pleasure and joy, but those are the two things that we have the most issues with,
Yeah,
right?
yeah, which
So
is so sad.
right, like what could this world look like if we weren't so concerned about how we looked, but more concerned about how we felt.
Totally.
Exactly. Yeah. Like, what if?
Right.
What if we were just having a good time all the time we spent? I mean, this, when I think about like I think until I was like, I don't know, 25, 26, like every social interaction I had was like deeply, I'm a big part of my consciousness was just thinking about like, how do I look? Do I look fat? Is my hair greasy? Like, is my belly showing? Just embarrassment, just like the pain, this like stinging embarrassment just of myself. And yeah, and that's just social interactions. I mean, there's also just all the time you spend alone hating your own body and like, yeah, just so much time and mental space and energy. Oh my God.
Yeah. Yeah. And I come from a dance background. So, you're trained to look and judge and criticize and fix everything, right? Like looking in the mirror as a form of critique and assessment as opposed to appreciation. So that's something that I had to come to. And yeah, all those tools are good for establishing body lines and form and all of that. But when you're in that world, you kind of get stuck in that pattern, right? Like where the first thing you do in the morning is look in the mirror and judge.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. That's awful.
Yeah. But like coming to it and like appreciating it in a whole new way. Like this is, I feel very carbon based, very human right now, which is like something that human used to be a dirty word to me. Like, don't you dare call me human.
Why?
Because I felt like human equaled flawed. And I was like, oh no, I am beyond that. Right. Yeah, but that was my own issue. But I will tell you, like, letting go of that and just using my body to experience pleasure and like seek pleasure and seek joy, even in a time that has been so stressful, like this past year and a half or however long, like we're still kind of dangling in this transition, has been key.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, definitely, especially with body stuff. Like I feel like so many people gained weight. How do you not gain weight when you're locked in your fucking house, like stressed out because the world is ending? Like, know. But yeah, I think that like I relate to that like desire for like that's almost an absurd desire to be like achieve perfection and not in my body because I've never felt like I had even the potential to reach like an exceptional level of like presentation with my body just because I'm just a funny shape. But I with my work and I sort of just dawned on me now like that's absurd. Like why would you not want to be human? And I'm like, oh my God, I'm like that with myself about everything else. Like what if I just enjoyed working?
Yeah, I said that the other day too. I was like, what if my filter and how I see the world was through a filter of pleasure? Like I could approach my work with pleasure instead of anger or frustration or however we see work. Like what if that was my filter? So I'm working on that.
Yeah, and just I think like often with body positive conversation, we hear a lot of like, well, you're so much more than your body, like, and it's implying like, oh, but you can be excellent in other ways. And like, what if we just didn't need to be excellent at all? What if we were just enough?
Right. Like what if it was just about what if it was just about our interactions and what we gave the world, right? Like you all came together and gave the world Pussypedia and art and beauty and knowledge. Hello. Like really approachable knowledge, because I have a lot of vagina, womb, pussy books on my shelf, but this is approachable.
Thank you. I worked really hard to make it that. Maria did a lot to make it that as well. I agree with you about the illustrations. They're really joyful, and that's super important to us. And I don't know, Maria's work has always made me feel a lot. And yeah, we really wanted it to feel like that, because it's like, how do you get rid of shame? Like, you can't just do it by explaining stuff and saying it's fine, it's normal. It has to.
Well, it's vulnerable. Like, what you're doing is exposing truth and knowledge, but you're also exposing yourself, and you're bringing yourself to the work, and you're sharing your own experiences. And I think that's key to helping to shine light on the truth and releasing shame is really talking about your own experience. And that, I mean, that's what I've found for myself is like, the more that I talk about my own struggles and allow people to look behind the curtain, the more people are receptive to it.
Yeah, people are very receptive to it, especially when it's the things that are supposed to be like most shameful, because they're like, could I say that too, maybe? And for me, like, personally, the things that have helped, experiences that have most helped me overcome shame are just being around other people that have overcome shame about those things. Like, have you guys had naked friends that always just like manage to be naked randomly and have no qualm about being naked?
Of course. I mean, I'm in burlesque for a living. Yeah.
Right. But like, it's just like those friends, like, I've had a series of those friends, like, they helped me so much, like, just by being naked and feeling fine themselves, like, they were okay. And I was like, I could be naked too. Like, why wouldn't we do this? Like, it's like, oh yeah.
And what you find is that everyone is fucking beautiful. Yeah. Everyone is beautiful. And that's something that I found, I used to lead boudoir shoots, and these women would be so nervous and, feeling their feelings. And then they'd get in the front of the camera and the lights. And I'm just like, oh my God, you're gorgeous. Everyone is gorgeous. Yeah. And we don't see each other naked enough to appreciate the beauty that we all possess.
Totally. I went to like a Turkish bathhouse, and that was the first time I was ever naked in a room with a bunch of other naked women of all different ages. And I was like, oh my God, like, nobody's body looks bad. Like, I don't look at anyone else's body with the same like mean, like, harshness that I look at my own body with, and I don't see anyone else's body and think like, ew, gross, like, ever. Like, we don't. That's so crazy. Yeah.
So as you were putting together this book, was there anything new that you learned or surprised you about the pussy or surrounding topics?
I was surprised by the clitoris article in the book because I wonder for a very long time, like, why, if I was amazed by my body, I never knew what my clitoris was for, and that it was just producing pleasure. That's the only function of it. And I was angry at myself, like, you should have known that before because it was in your body. But then realizing that it's like a very long story since the times of Plato, where someone decided that we shouldn't get close to that information. No? We shouldn't get informed in that we deserve or we are able to feel pleasure, or we deserve to feel pleasure, because if we knew that pleasure was a thing for us, then who would have taken care of the kids? Or I don't know, it would probably be the apocalypse, the end of the world, because
we would just be sitting there masturbating the whole time. Is that what everyone's afraid of?
Yes, it is. That was like literally explicitly written, like, yeah. It is pretty
Yes.
funny. It's very intentional.
Maria, can you talk a little bit more about the article that you're referring to in the book?
About the clitoris, yeah. Well, Zoe made this great work in writing the whole history behind why we don't know anything about our clitoris, no, and every reason why every scientist came century after century saying like, oh, why has never no one ever talked about the clitoris if it's there, no, you can see it and touch it and people have it in the world. And it just happened over and over again that because of the beliefs of the time or moral constructs, they just decided that it wasn't worthy to be shared and we weren't allowed to study about it and the shame was too much to look at our own bodies. So there was never good information about it. We never knew that we deserve pleasure and what our clitoris was for until, and this is the part that really amazes me the most because it was in the 70s, I think, where this group of women gathered together and they were like, no, there is no information that feels that it's talking about my body. So what can we do in order to change that? So they gathered together, they got naked, masturbate each other, look at each other's bodies and how they change, and wrote a more a real guide about the pleasure and our bodies. And it was until then that this work has been revealed, no, for the rest of us. And the anatomical structure of the clitoris was finally revealed in 2008.
1998.
In 1998. So that is very recently. I was already born and living my life, and there wasn't anywhere to read about it. So that's very infuriating because I never really enjoyed my sexual life when I began having a sexual life because I didn't know I could feel pleasure like that. I saw movies and I saw I don't know softcore movies, no. And in those movies, you can see that how women were expected to feel pleasure. And it was just by having a penis inside.
Mm-hmm.
No? And there wasn't another possibility. So when I started my sexual life, I was very limited on that matter. Like, I didn't know there was a different possibility. So
Right.
now that I know that, I feel very angry, very pissed off. Like, okay, so now I'm gonna enjoy more my body. I'm gonna touch my clitoris more and tell people about it too.
Yeah. Pleasure is power. That's what I like to say. Yeah. But you can see, in movies, the woman gets off in 3 seconds and it's like, oh, magic. Yeah. So I
No
would
foreplay
really love
ever. No consent, no foreplay, no protection.
Yes.
No communication.
I will say though that do you watch Sex Education on
Yes,
Netflix?
I just finished it. I'm in love with it. It was so sweet and beautiful.
Oh my God. So I'm almost done with the newest season, but the scene that just happened in this season with Maeve and Isaac in the wheelchair, and like that was the sexiest, most beautiful scene where they're navigating consent and like working within their physical limitations and just working to bring each other pleasure, whatever that looks like for them.
Yeah,
and it was just
I loved how they made it
touching.
not awkward. Like it was slightly awkward, but it was okay, and they kept going. It's not like they were like pretending it was this sexy thing. Like another thing I don't like about a lot of sex ed stuff is like, yeah, how to make consent sexy, like how to make disclosure sexy. I'm like, it's not gonna be sexy, it's gonna be awkward. Why are you gaslighting people? That's a really awkward conversation, and so I loved that they did that. And it was a little awkward, but then they got past it and they got into their group, and then it was hot. And it's like, yeah, it's like, I think part of that's damaging about portrayal of sex in movies is how it's just like don't talk because you'll ruin it. Like, you know, just like heat up the moment. Like this like has to be cinematic. Like, no, it doesn't have to be cinematic. And in fact, if you take the time to actually talk things through and have those awkward moments before you start, it will be way hotter than if you're pretending that it's cinematic the whole time.
Right. Like you're coming into the house and you're just knocking into all the
Yeah,
halls
ripping your
and
clothes off. And yeah, like,
no, I've never done that in my life.
no,
No.
no.
Oh my gosh. So on the note of sex education, they have two non-binary characters. And when they go into the sex ed, like with this new head teacher who's a disaster, but you know, girls go over here, boys go over here, and the non-binary people are like, oh, where do I go? You know? And I was watching it with my husband, and he's like, well, shouldn't everybody just all have the same education? Because wouldn't it be good to know what all of this is for everybody?
Yes. Yeah, you're
Yeah.
so right. I remember like one day in fifth grade, we were in our sex ed unit, and most of the time they had us separated. But like one of the days, they were teaching us how to put a tampon in, and the boys were in the room and they were laughing really hard. And we were talking about it in the car on the way home, a friend of mine and me and my mom. And she said, well, why would they have the boys learn to put tampons in? And she was like, well, in case they marry a woman with no arms.
Oh, that's so sweet.
But there's something to that. Like, why not? Why not? You know, should we just all know more about everybody's bodies? It's just learning good and general knowledge, healthy for all people. Yeah, your husband's totally right.
Yeah, I think there should be like sex ed, you know, continued sex ed throughout your life. Like you have your little thing in fifth grade or, you know, learn like the basics, and then we can move into more pleasure, and then we can move into like kink or something, you know, like just keep progressing because I really think it's the only kind of education we get that's just stunted. Like you get what you get when you're 12, and that's supposed to last you your whole life.
Right.
That's insane. No knowledge that we acquire acts like that.
Right. Totally.
Yeah. So, you know, we have to be proactive, and we have to all buy Pussypedia and get into it.
Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah.
All right. So what are your future plans for Pussypedia? What do you see? Is there like a volume 2? Is there still more to learn? What are you doing? Top secret?
Pussypedia en español. Pussypedia for everyone in the world.
Yeah. First, the translations. We will be translating into Spanish, French, Italian, Russian, Ukrainian. Is that it? Yeah, that's it for now. And we also have some things we won't currently talk about, but perhaps we'll, if things go well, be able to talk about soon.
Okay. And then I can just have you back and we can talk more.
Yeah.
Awesome. All right. Well, tell everyone where they can find Pussypedia, find you, all that good stuff. Awesome.
Pussypedia.net is the website, and Pussypedia, the book, you can buy anywhere you buy books. It's on Amazon, but also it's at a lot of local bookstores. And if you go to your local bookstore and they don't have it, they can order it, and maybe they'll order more than one copy. So that's even better if they don't have it yet. Or also it's at all Barnes and Nobles all over the US. And yeah.
Anything else, Maria?
Well, you can find me on Instagram as Maria Conejo.
Maria_Conejo.
That's my.
And what about is Pussypedia on Instagram?
Oh, Pussypedia on Instagram. You can find them like PwordPedia.
Yeah, Pword. Power to the Pword, everybody.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much for joining me today. It's
Thank
been
you.
such a fun conversation. I love your book, everybody. Go out, buy the book, go to the website, and spread your legs and spread the love. Follow
Yes.
Pword, follow PwordPedia, follow Maria and Zoe. You can follow us at I Look Down There or me at Michelle Amore. And remember that confidence comes from the bottom up. So grab a mirror and look down there. Till next week.
Yes. I love that.